Hi, in this video, we will talk about encapsulation in Java. So what do you mean by encapsulation? So encapsulation refers to binding of fields and methods inside a single class. So encapsulation means you binding your variables and methods inside a class. Okay, so we'll see more. It prevents the outer classes from accessing and changing fields and methods of a class. So with the help of encapsulation, you can restrict your class, or inside the class, you restrict accessing your methods and variables, all these things. So how you can achieve that? You can create fully encapsulated class in Java by making all the data members of the class as private. So with the help of a private keyword, you can achieve this encapsulation. Okay. So this is one of the access modifiers, right? So least access. So when you provide private, within that class only you can access the information. But if you want to access outside of that class, with the help of private, you cannot access. So then we can use setter and getter methods to set and get data in it. Okay. So then how you can access, if I want to access something which is private. Okay, at that time, with the help of setter and getter methods, we can access those information. Okay, so this is called encapsulation. But what is the advantage when you use encapsulation? So advantage of encapsulation, by providing only a setter and getter method, you can make the class read only or write only. So in other words, you can skip the getter or setter method. So you can restrict not to access anything from that class, but if you want to access, you can use setter and getter methods. It provides you the control over the data. If you want to set the value of a variable which should be greater than 100 only, you can write the logic inside the setter method. You can write the logic not to store the negative numbers in the setter methods. Means, so you have one variable. So if you want to access that, it should be a public or more than that private. Okay. So if you make it not private, so anybody can access that variable, and anybody can set any value to that variable. So that time you cannot have control over that variable, but somehow you want to control that access. So with the help of this encapsulation, with the help of the setters and getters, you can have control over that variables. With the help of a program, we can understand everything in detail. So it is a way to achieve data hiding in Java, because other class will not able to access the data through the private data members. So this concept is also called data hiding. So you are not providing any information to outside. So you are hiding the data inside that class. Okay. So this is the advantage of encapsulation. So by taking one example, we'll understand all the points which we discussed. Okay. So let's go to Visual Studio Code. So here I created one of the classes called encapsulation demo, and have written main method. Okay. So, and we are talking about the two classes, right? Accessing some other class. So we'll create some other class. I'll name it as employee. So inside the employee, let's assume I have an int employee ID. Okay, that's it. So now, with the help of employee class object, employee E is equals to new employee, and then E dot employee ID is equals to 100. Then system dot out dot println E dot employee ID. I'm printing it. I'm assigning one value to this employee ID, which is there in the employee class, and I'm printing the same thing. Okay. So we'll try to execute this, and we'll see whether we were able to access this employee ID from this class, and we were able to assign some value to that, and we were able to print that. Okay. Let me go to the command prompt, Java encapsulation demo.java. You see that? I'm able to print 100. Okay. So I'll give another value, -50. I'm giving some negative value. So let me try to execute again. You see that I'm getting -50. Okay. I'll give some 15, 20, something like that, one random number. Execute. I'm getting. So from other class, I'm able to manipulate this employee ID. Whatever value I want, I'm giving. But in real time, I don't want to provide minus values. Okay, I can access that value, but there is some restriction. I can set only these type of values. Okay, there is some rule. So how you can achieve that? How you can control in such a way? So if you make it private, then okay, you made it private. Now you try to execute now, then you'll get an error that you see employee ID has private access in employee. Okay, this is compilation failed. So how can I access? If I remove this one, I do not have control over that variable. If I provide that, I cannot even access that. Okay, but I don't want these two scenarios. I don't want to give full control and I don't want to give full restriction on that. Okay, that time make it private, and with the help of setter and getter methods, then you can achieve this. Okay, so first public void set employee ID. So when you try to use setter and getter methods, whatever the variable, for that you will put set and you make it this E as capital, means normally we'll start with small e, right? So that will become, but this is not a rule. So in general, we'll say setter and getter. You can give whatever name, but you'll get confused. If you revisit your program, you'll get confused that what purpose you have written this one. So if you put maintain the consistency that get and set, then you'll understand for this variable, you are able to set something. If you put get for this variable, you are getting that value. So public void get employee ID. Okay. So this is how, with the help of these two methods, set and get, these are called setter and getter. So with the help of these methods, I can manipulate this information and I can set, I can get the values. Okay. So we'll see. So what we'll do, I'll provide the same employee ID. So while providing, I'll set this value to this value. So how you can do that? This dot employee ID is equals to employee ID. Whatever I set this information, I'm assigning to this employee ID. All right. So we already discussed what is this in one of our previous videos. So access current class object means information. So then I can get this information. I have set this information. So then I can get this information. For that, you need to use return employee ID. But when you're returning something, what is this integer value? So the return type should be integer. So I need to change it to integer. So this way you can access private variables or private members from other class, right? So now we'll see how we can do that. Let me comment out this. And I need this line again. So now what I'll do, first I'll set the value. How we did this one, this way, we need to do with the help of method. So E dot set employee ID, I'll give same way 100, just an example. And once you call this method, so employee ID, what we are passing 100. This 100 is I am assigning to this employee ID, this employee ID, and I am returning the same employee ID from the get employee ID. So then what is this? With the help of this get method, I can access whatever I set. Okay. We need to set with the set method. We need to get this from get method. So if I try to execute this, you see that 100 I'm printing. So just make it -50. That -50. And the same way 15, 20, whatever we have given in the previous example, same thing. 15, 20. So then what is the use of this? We did the same thing without setter and getter by making this not private. We see everything. But what is the use when you try to use the setter and getter? Right, that time. So if you have a variable, you cannot put some conditions on that. But if it is a method, you can have some conditions, if else condition, something like that. So what I'll do then, I'll put a condition here. If employee ID is greater than 0, then only you set this employee ID to that. Okay. When the employee ID is greater than 0, then only assign that employee ID to this employee ID and provide the same information. Okay. So now I'm able to put some condition on this employee ID. Right. Previously, that is not possible. But with the help of methods, I can write this if else conditions. I can put some condition on this. That is the flexibility I get when I use private and use this setter and getter public methods. Okay. So if I try to execute this, nothing changed 15, 20. But if I put minus value, -50, previously when you do not have this condition, I can assign this value, I can get this value. But you see now, right, it is giving me 0 as the default value is 0. Integer default value is 0. But I'm not getting -50. Okay. If you make it just 1, and if you try to execute 1 is greater than 0, then obviously you'll get 1. Right. Other than positive numbers, you will get 0. The reason is default value of integer is 0. Right. That is how I am restricting, putting some conditions on that. Right. So in the real time, it will be helpful. According to your requirement, you will give the access to this employee ID outside the class, even though if it is private. If you do not have setter and getter, you will not have control on this. You can manipulate how you want. Okay, that is the advantage when you use encapsulation. Okay, so what could be the possible interview questions from this? So what is encapsulation in Java? What is data hiding in Java? How to achieve encapsulation in Java? Okay, these are the possible interview questions from this topic. Okay, that's all in this video. Thank you.